Hi, and welcome everybody to another MassMEDIC webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Nicole Owens. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications. If you're not familiar with MassMEDIC, we are a regionally based trade association for the medical device industry, and we work to bolster the industry through connection, events, education, events like this, advocacy, and awareness. We have a great presentation today from our friends and partners at Alira Health. We're going to be talking about the recent CDMO report that they released and the M&A trends on the USA market. So I'm going to be turning it over to our presenter here in just a minute, but I have a few housekeeping notes to share with you before we do that. This webinar is being recorded, so anyone who registered for the webinar will receive a recording of it after. We're also going to have time for Q&A, so please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we will do our best to answer all of them as time permits. All right, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter for the day. Carlo is our presenter for today, and he is a partner at Alira Health. And Carlo, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate your intro, and I would like to thank MassMEDIC for hosting us today. You guys are being great partners, bringing our market intelligence research to the community. And this is my fourth year hosting this webinar, showing our data on trends in the medical device contract manufacturing and development market. We released, first of all, just a few words of introduction. I am an investment banker within Alira Health's transaction advisory division. We are a team that supports a private equity backed or entrepreneur-led organization in small mid-market M&A. We have been active deal makers in the field for the past 15 years, and we have used our insight in the market dynamic to develop these reports starting 2020 with the support of MassMEDIC. I am based out of San Francisco, California, and I've been with the company for 9 years. Beside our investment banking practice, Alira has a suite of services supporting the life sciences industry, from clinical and regulatory affairs to strategy consulting and market access consulting, in a continuum of operation that can support the entire life cycle of technology development and commercialization. I will provide my contact information at the end of the presentation in case anybody would like to get in touch with me to discuss further these topics. This presentation that I'm going to give you is an excerpt of our MedTech CDMO report for 2023 that we released earlier in Q1. It's been an interesting juncture in the sense that a lot has happened in 2023 between a worsening of the capital markets with the insolvency of Silicon Valley banks and other financial institutions that sort of put pressure in the medical device and life science innovation ecosystem, creating some heightening the risk on the economic backdrop, and so a lot of the trends that we researched in the Q4 of last year, are quickly being challenged by the events. And I will be very happy to show you what our data and service indicate. All right, let's start. All right, this chart represent the recent and expected trends from 2021 through 2023 of both the medical device industry as a whole and the contract manufacturing side. The darker blue chart on top is the trend in CDMOs. What can we learn from this data? Last year was troublesome for MedTech as a whole. The industry grew. So just pointing to the charts, medical device industry, global industry grew 4% last year, below its long-term potential of 6-7%. This performance was driven by the end of a cycle of inventory building for hospitals that was affected since the pandemic by the sort of the accordion effect of volumes of procedure that were first paused and readmitted at the hospitals, but also the supply chain bottlenecks that sort of slow down the supply of devices to end users, but also by a worsening of the economic environment with the onset of a recession that certainly hit the spend in healthcare, and generally a slowdown of volumes of procedure compared to the original estimates. How did the contract manufacturing ecosystem react to that? Was still outperforming medical device OEMs, but also stopping short of the long-term trend of 12.5% that we forecast for the upcoming 5 years. There were challenges affecting both sides of the industry, both end markets and supply chain issues in general. And the original estimate that we sort of gathered through primary research at the end of the year and the beginning of this year indicated an inflection of the growth rates of both OEMs and CDMO markets. That, however, we are experiencing deep into, at the end of Q1, now at the beginning of Q2, will probably be revised due to a worsening economic environment. How is that happening? We'll look at the factors affecting the forecast growth in a couple of minutes, but definitely the challenges affecting the innovation ecosystem and a decline in volumes of and value of venture financing to the medical device industry is sort of creating pulling the brake on many programs that will definitely slow down the business for CDMOs throughout the year. But also there was a particular near-term effect that perhaps was overseen by the expectation, which is the completion of the inventory build of OEMs that you order many more products through 2022 to face shortages on the supply chain and potential spike in demand that have sort of resulted in a slower performance of CDMOs across therapeutic areas, across areas of medical technology, and ultimately had the effect of a slower than average Q1 and probably a weaker first half of the year than was originally expected. So, long story short is we are projecting a 12.9% growth for CDMOs on average this year, and it's very likely that these forecast number will be slightly revised on the downside, and we'll be monitoring this trend as Q2 advances and update our estimates going into the second half of the year. A rapid look at the performance of medical device markets last year it was underwhelming. Different markets growing in the low single digits, with a couple of exceptions. In vitro diagnostic in 2022 continue to be boosted by the demand for COVID-19 testing. That continue to be sort of a routine procedure, both at home and in clinics and hospitals. But we did see a first negative inflection of the demand and the volume sort of fading. So it is very likely that the IVD market will sort of flatten out to the average of other medical device categories moving forward, as these extra volume of business in the COVID category, both a rapid test and PCR tests will sort of slow down and ultimately be follow a more normal trend moving forward, as for every other category of infectious disease testing. Medical imaging had a particularly good performance, but it was a rebound from a difficult 2021. So we see that the trends are not particularly interesting. The other big markets like orthopedics, cardiovascular, fluid management, they were sort of sluggish and at a flat performance. So we definitely expect 2023 to be to perform better than the past, under the assumption that hospitals' purchasing pattern will normalize, and the number of procedure will continue, will grow according to demographic trends, and the supply of devices and the demand will sort of continue under more normal trends. The health of the medical device market is really driven by capital allocations at the end of the day, and we last year was the first bear market in many years. It was sort of a change of pace in the performance of big OEMs, but also it marked a very sharp decline in capital allocated to innovation. After several years of tailwinds boosting the performance of the industry, that certainly the advent of the pandemic in 2020 helped sort of put the focus of the venture capital industry on the development of new technologies. So what that means is that there's a risk aversion of institutional investors, both among public investors in the OEMs field, as well as VC investments in the private sector, right? And so it is to be expected that flow of capital to the industry will continue to be to underperform the recent years, with, however, some silver linings. The dry powder available to institutional investors, due to the historical fundraising of VCs and institutions in the past 3 years, is as high as ever. So capital availability is not going away. It's simply managing the risk associated to the macroeconomic challenges and the specific challenges of the medical device industry. Particular focus and importance we give to the flow of VC investments to early stage innovation, because that's the lifeline of the industry and innovation and competitiveness for big OEMs. So what is this slowdown of VC investments going to mean is simply slower clinical trials, slower, time to market, probably a higher mortality of startups in the field, which is not good news, right? So I think we have to brace ourselves to navigate a tough time. It's been very visible already in Q1 that the volume of funding available to Series A, Series B deals in MedTech have been smaller than usual. And this uncertainty will continue for a while, I think aggravated by the concerns around banking institutions and the lack of venture debt availability in the near term. So let's brace ourselves for a tough year. However, not losing the optimism for the medium long term. I think we will all have to look at the budgets and kind of expect some a tougher economic environment. What this means for CDMOs is obviously more selection of let's say more a variance of performance by the customers. Some programs of medical device development may go away. Those that will be funded, however, will be in a great position to develop their systems through commercialization. So ultimately, this is going to be a challenging competitive environment, but that should result into winners and great opportunities for outsourced organizations to serve these fast-growing, innovative customers. I've talked in the introduction about the macroeconomic factors, driving the expected performance. This 12.9% is probably not going to be met by the US industry, but the fundamental factors, say, driving the competitive infrastructure of outsourced manufacturing in MedTech are exactly the same. US CDMOs will continue to attract volumes from offshore locations, particularly related to highly complex systems that require superior attention to quality. The trend of OEMs to farm out their supply chain to outsource organization is as healthy and as a priority item as ever for big OEMs. And coming out of the recession, there are also some silver lining related to an adjustment of the labor market, which has been a tremendous hurdle to the growth of the industry, both related to highly qualified technical labor, as well as manual labor dedicated to manufacturing medical devices. So there are certainly positives even in this complicated economic environment. However, we'll have to navigate the recession, as we said, and I don't want to spend too much time to talk about that. Within CDMO specifically, we think that there are a few trends worth mentioning. The consolidation in the industry by means of M&A activity continues and creates a strong organization, financially strong organization with a growing degree of technical sophistication. So that US CDMOs are on average as strong, as competitive as ever, and capable of capturing more of the demands of the OEMs. So that's good news, and bodes well for the long-term continued growth of the industry and the support of the commercialization of medical devices as well. A few red flags: the issue of ETO sterilization regulations being discussed in Congress and potentially by initiative of the EPA restricting the use of this widely adopted sterilization technology are a concern, not only for CDMOs, but for the industry as a whole. We have prepared a case study that I will briefly illustrate that shows how these may both represent an added cost for the industry that will ultimately be have to carried by by the market stakeholders. So big red flag, but also create opportunities for suppliers of sterilization services to provide higher quality and more sustainable forms of product sterilization. So there, as in everything, there are two sides of this controversial coin. And I mentioned also the sort of decaying dynamic demand for COVID testing that will sort of normalize and stop being that boost for the industry as a whole. Maybe this is a good time, Nicole, to launch the first question. I would be very interested from the stakeholders in the audience to see if what I said about ongoing trends and slower than expected 2023 is really an issue, and if you've seen sort of a slowdown of the demand by your customers. Obviously, this is an anecdotal survey, but it will help to see if the audience has been affected by this trend of sort of negative revision of the performance for the year. And I would be interested to talk with you in the Q&A section to see how you've been affected. Let's give you all a few minutes to click yes or no. It's nearly 50-50, but predominantly yes. You seem to validate our perception and our initial data about a slower than expected start of 2023. So thanks for participating in this. We have another couple of questions coming up in the second part of the presentation. We continue to monitor kind of the composition of the US suppliers of medical devices. Our database tracks the performance of a little more than 300 companies with manufacturing capacity in the United States. This includes players based in headquartered in Europe or Asia or other parts of the world that have a presence in the United States. And we continue to see that small and mid-sized manufacturers between, let's say, with revenue less than $100 million represent the core of these industry, right? And this gives us an idea of the potential for consolidation, but we also have to be aware of the long-term trend. This is the structure of the industry, while the way kind of the mid-size and large size players tend to own a greater share of the market. This picture is not drastically different than what we observed 5 years ago. So there are still strong forces in action to aggregate these smaller and micro players, within bigger groups, and this is also, I believe, a very positive look at the structure of the industry and speaks for the quality provided by smaller entrepreneur-led businesses to the ecosystem. We'll look at the M&A trends in a few minutes that are directly related to this snapshot. Particularly the advent of private equity is interested in forming larger platforms and capturing more value, building capabilities and owning a larger portion of the supply chain for the larger OEMs, right? So these forces are always very strong, and while they represent kind of the competitive aspect of CDMOs, and also puts pressure on the market participants to do better than the competition. We think that the particular fragmentation that we're representing here is an intrinsic value for the US industry, because a lot of capital is going to be invested to in the growth of the industry, and it will benefit it will benefit the industry as a whole. We've talked about kind of the macro factors. I think I wouldn't point to anything particular, if not the middle box here where I mentioned competitive pricing power versus OEMs. This is I think the judgment about how have CDMOs navigated the last few years with regards to downward pricing pressures from OEMs that are clearly an effect of the tension in the healthcare the broader healthcare market to reduce the cost of healthcare and reduce reimbursement of procedure, and incentivize manufacturers to produce at a lower cost. The indicative data that we have observed is that CDMOs have preserved a lot of their pricing power in the last few years, because they become a powerful, a very powerful service provider to minimize the effect of global supply chain disruption. In other words, OEMs have been willing to pay, or forego price reduction policies to keep their supply chain intact and be able to serve the market and deliver components and finished products. And this certainly has benefited the CDMOs in the last few years. And we think that this dynamic, this fundamental aspect of the negotiation between CDMOs and OEMs will continue to a large degree in the coming years. The counter, the opposite aspect of this is that the shortage of raw materials will continue, and the world is less globalized than it was a few years ago, and so that this tension on the supply chain side will persist, and we'll all have to navigate that and find ways to allocate the cost of this issue between suppliers and distributors of medical devices and payers ultimately. We have prepared in our recent report 3 case studies that I'm just going to look at briefly as a teaser for continued conversation with the community. I mentioned the importance of sterilization rules and how these may change the landscape in the US. This is an exquisitely United States problem. That in the past 4 or 5 years, I've seen the capacity for ETO sterilization reduce, and definitely created some bottlenecks for the internal supply chain. This forced OEMs to ship overseas their devices for sterilization, and created added cost to the industry. Obviously, this is a major economic problem that the regulators and the industry stakeholders have to solve. But in this dysfunctional segment of the ecosystem, there are also opportunities to develop more sustainable sterilization facilities, and that could capture a growing market share. And so we think that this problem is going to create an opportunity for a more modern and more efficient sterilization industry. And this is kind of a teaser of an idea that for private equity investors that may decide to enter this space and capitalize on the weakness of some of the market players due to the deficiencies from a technology and emission control point of view. Another business case that we have examined is that of the upstream development of services by CDMOs, the ability to provide product design and development and to assist the early stages of product innovation has become a critical strategy, a critical feature of any CDMO. And organic or inorganic expansion of the service portfolio to this feature is at the forefront of any contract organization. We've seen a lot of activity on the M&A market, marking a discontinuity compared to the past, where engineering firms were not really hot targets. But this is happening, and I think this is the industry's worst kept secret. But there's definitely a momentous trend happening here, and that saw 6 transactions happening in the United States among engineering firms last year. So it's pretty impressive. And another kind of teaser of opportunities for CDMO to expand their business has to do with the particular structure of the European market. Europe is including UK and kind of the peripheral economies of Europe. 25 countries are quite fragmented. They're smaller market where, on average, smaller contract organizations assist local OEMs. So this level of fragmentation is probably what the US looked like a decade or 15 years ago. But within this ecosystem, there are incredible competencies, across really the European region for engineering and high quality manufacturing that represent a natural opportunity for M&A by US CDMOs. So this is something that we put a lot of emphasis on, and Europe in general, but particularly Eastern European countries, but is a platform for definitely lower cost manufacturing than the US is. So it's a great opportunity to be considered. I will shift gears now and dedicate the time to the final section of our presentation, which is how the M&A market. Every year I give this presentation, almost astonished by the volume of deal making and the amount of capital available to create platforms. It has definitely been a robust market for private equity investors, supported also by an appetite of corporate players to grow inorganically. And 2022, with all the limitation, the negative performance of the equity markets and the increasing cost of capital in other industries generated a slump in M&A activity. This was not the case for medical device CDMOs, where the rate of M&A volume and the valuation of of CDMO deals were very resilient to these negative factors, and actually were pretty comparable to the records reached in 2021. So a very healthy M&A landscape that was particularly robust across types of capabilities. I mentioned design and development. That's one of the, at the top of the list in terms of being able to power the innovation flow. But let's say across the world of plastics and metals, the market has performed really strongly. And also, we didn't see a lot of differentiation across therapeutic areas. We see in the center bottom box that cardiovascular was kind of the highest specialty targeted by M&A acquirers, but there was really a balanced representation of technology and therapeutic areas in the M&A market. And I would mention that the last quarter of last year, when financial markets sort of took the largest hit, was actually the best performer ever among CDMO, medical device CDMOs. That momentum certainly spilled into the beginning of 2023. The Q1 that recently closed has been probably, nearly at par with the record of the prior quarter. However, I have to say that in the past month and a half, the volume of activity seemed to be more rarefied. So we do expect a sustained number of M&A deals happening in this space, but we think that probably the weakness of the economic environment is catching up with this particularly rich bubble that has been medical device CDMO. And we expect ultimately a lower volume of deal making than the prior years. Of course, already 12 transactions have been completed as of Q1, so perfectly in line with the numbers of 2022. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here to talk about the activity of last year, but there are definitely some players among private equity backed and corporate buyers have been particularly busy. I mentioned a few seconds ago the aspect of valuation. This is a topic very dear to both buyers and sellers. I can confirm that the average valuations of M&A deal in this space have remained kind of constant throughout 2022. The concerns that I alluded to earlier, the higher cost of capital, the slowdown of the industry growth in 2023 are certainly causing some headaches among buyers, right? So it's very possible that there will be a higher selection of the targets deserving price premium in M&A deal making. We represent buyers and sellers. Anecdotally, in our deal making experience, we noticed that to sell a company at a high valuation, the processes are a little slower and more rarefied in terms of number of buyers than they were a year ago. And but that where there is a strong alignment of strategic value, there are always buyers for technologies and services in the market. That is a very powerful hook to the valuation that remain in line with what this chart represents. Let me comment it for you who see it for the first time. But essentially, we recognize a linear correlation between the profitability and the growth of the company. We have seen multiple deals exceeding the 20x of EBITDA performance, so 20 times the EBITDA value. These are companies that grow, faster than 25% a year, and then have an EBITDA margin of greater than 25%. And it's of course, these are top performers in the industry, and these level of performance tend to be associated with highly complex, high value implantable technologies and high precision componentry that goes into these high value products. That represents kind of the ceiling, but we've seen companies transact for 25 times EBITDA and above among these pool. Let's say that less differentiated primary component manufacturers that have engineering and injection molding services, that are just one piece of the value chain. They tend to be priced in the 12 to 15 times range. And there are, of course, always pressures by some highly motivated buyer to pay premium on top of that. So these are kind of normal valuation metrics, and obviously this is a very subjective way of looking at the market. Sellers always want to maximize their exit value. Buyers are looking to minimize this. So this is the result of a negotiation process that is always always provides new data and new insights. So we're very happy to engage with you, understand what your views are on this dynamic. And in conclusion, I want to just express confidence that medical device CDMO will continue to attract the interest of different types of buyers, cross-border corporate acquirers, different types of private equity focused on building either specialized capability-focused platforms, or players looking to deploy greater amounts of capital and just putting together large-scale operations. So the diversity of the type of buyers is an indication of health for this M&A market as well. And we have to be mindful that we're living in a world with greater interest rates, lower access to financing, and that will inevitably turn off the interest of some buyers. But overall, long term, this remains a very important lever in the development of the CDMO industry. So these are my insights for today. I have in conclusion another question. Those of you who are active deal makers, seller or buyers of businesses in this space, can you confirm what is your perception of the M&A market today? If you're so kind to put the question, here it is. We forgot to launch the sterilization question a while ago. Okay, that's my mistake. We can do that as well later. But as you consider this question and decide, provide your feedback, I will now stop here and open for some Q&A. There you go. A little more selective. I think that's a safe. Safe out. Position to the market trends. Selective behavior by buyers, but fundamentally still strong interest to contribute to the development, to the consolidation of our industry. So let's review some of the questions that I've received during the chat. There are some very interesting questions here at first sight. Which segments of the OEM community are particularly over inventoried? So this question has to do with, you know, how OEMs have built a lot of inventory and now are sort of slowing down their volumes of orders. We don't, frankly, I don't have a particular insight about this. Electronics have been and electronic components have been a particularly sore topic lately, and so any device involving, you know, electronic componentry, I think, are particularly exposed to the risk of being over inventoried, and but otherwise the inventory planning really has to do with market-based data, right, and forecast about volumes of procedure, and you know, and the speed of clinical trials for earlier stage programs. So I hope that helps. Another question asks, this is a very long question. I will paraphrase a question that asks, how do buyers of CDMO operations benefit or feel the need of being one-stop shops towards OEMs? Well, the necessity to build one-stop shop capabilities is quite important to retain business, right? And I think this has to do more with what the OEMs want than necessarily efficiencies or intrinsic value that can be provided by CDMOs. In other words, OEMs want to reduce the number of suppliers, and they want to have supply vendors, partners that are aligned with their long-term needs of maximizing quality, keeping the supply chain, minimizing the overall risk of supply chain disruption. This is an issue that has certainly been aggravated by the advent of COVID and everything that ensued, and ultimately to reduce costs. So the tendency to develop one-stop shop services and a sense of vertical integration is certainly one of the primary drivers of M&A activity. Anthony, we have a lot of questions from Anthony. Thank you so much. I've skipped one, but I'll indulge you with this next one. Does the acquisition of engineering firms skew the acquiring CM's offering to the types of manufacturing associated with the work that design teams are doing? For example, if they acquire an interventional device designer, does that contract manufacturer start to specialize in interventional devices? I think I would paraphrase. I think that what the point of this question is, how does the specialty of the technological know-how of the design firm influence the business development around those services in that particular therapeutic area? I think specialization is as a value. It allows engineering firms and contract manufacturers to be perceived as experts in a particular field, and to be more efficient in responding to their customers' needs. And also, I think what's very important to note is that acquiring early stage product development capabilities is really a powerful business development tool, because you meet companies or products that are at the infancy of their life cycle, and if you do a great job, then the customer is going to give you more business moving forward, and potentially give you, high scale manufacturing volume. So this level of specialization is definitely in the interest of this acquiring CMO to grow that and sort of maximize the conversion of business from early stage to recurring type revenue. I hope I addressed that question. How critical is it for MedTech CDMOs to be certified with regulatory bodies and quality bodies? Well, the quality standards in the industry are a critical component. So I'm not a quality expert or a regulatory expert, but it's to be a supplier of the large OEMs, this is a critical aspect, absolutely. Simply to be included in their vendor list. They are very long and processes of diligence and onboarding related to quality and regulatory registrations. Dan asked, can you expand on the out of US interest in US CDMO capacity? Well, this is plain and notable by the recent volume of acquisitions in the US. International corporate buyers are eager to build capacity in the United States to assist their customers here locally and be perceived as a strong partner. So there's been absolutely a gold rush by overseas acquirers to partner with US-based CDMOs and establish that continuity of service and contact with the customers in the United States. That, let's remember, is the largest single medical device market in the world. Bill asked an interesting question about robotic-assisted surgery and its market. It seems very complicated and competitive. Do you think anyone, whether big OEMs or smaller newcomer, will ever make a significant run at intuitive surgery? Okay, so this is a question more about the end market. I have a view. We have some particular expertise at Alira in the robotic-assisted surgery market. The development of the market in terms of deployment of robots in the hospital across specialties of surgery has definitely progressed more slowly than the industry would have liked, especially the big billions invested in creating these programs. We know that some players have completely overhauled their robotic surgery programs. The big barrier to entry is, of course, the budget of the hospitals that are, sort of cautious about spending many millions to outfit the operating rooms with expensive robots. However, technology. The technological progress will definitely create the need for better robots capable of assisting with minimally invasive procedure. Intuitive Surgical is a market leader, active in their own right in the innovation space. So it's a very interesting competitive battle. It impacts CDMOs because enabling these big robotic systems to operate, particularly at a level of disposable devices that function on this robot to perform the procedure, require a lot of engineering, and there's going to be a very strong demand for innovation. So a lot of early stage programs being farmed out to specialized contract organizations. And of course, the holy grail of this market is a widely available infrastructure of robots installed across departments of the hospital, really creating the surgery of the future. And that's, the big pie that everybody's is looking to eat from in the coming decades. I have room only for one more question, and I will address Peter's question regarding reshoring trend. Particularly, Peter asked, are you seeing CDMO deals in Mexico? I am not seeing CDMO deals in Mexico for two reasons. Mexico has abundant capacity for organic growth, in a sense that creating facilities that are FDA registered in Mexico as usually being the low-hanging fruit by CDMOs and medical device manufacturers alike. So that has been the strategy historically, just by in terms of the investments required to start a facility in Mexico. What I can say is that Mexico is a critical region related to the onshoring of volumes, particularly from Asia, for the US market, because everybody knows gives access to a pool of lower cost labor and relatively high quality standards, easy to monitor and to serve from the US headquarters. So we are at the top of the hour, passed it by a few seconds. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to address any other questions, but I appreciate this audience, very active. Thanks for being kind and participating in the surveys, all the great questions. I will download this question. I just want to leave you with my contact information. And of course, my privilege is to be connected with all of you. This is also a shout out to my team who do a fantastic job year after year to create these insights. And with this, Nicole, I'm going to hand it back to you to close the session. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlo. We really appreciate your time and all your expertise and that of your team as well. I did drop the link in the chat for everyone attending live to download the CDMO report. So if you have not done that yet, please go ahead and get it. Obviously, it has lots of wonderful content, everything that was included today, and so much more. So thank you again to our sponsors for today's webinar, Alira Health. They are great partners. Obviously, reach out to them if they can help you with anything. And please go to our website, massmedic.com, click on the events tab and see what other great events we have coming up. And we will see you next time. Thank you.